This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
This is one of those stories that are not necessarily made for talk radio, one could say, because the best way to fully understand what our next guest wrote about is to read the piece, and I heartily recommend that you do it. We can barely scratch the surface, but it's such a well done piece. It's such a frightening story as well, that I still thought it was important if we could get the writer on to do so. And Guardsy was able to pull that off, and we appreciate Dan Wetzel, ESPN.com, for his time on what I'm assuming you're getting inundated. So thank you very much for giving us a few minutes this afternoon, Dan.
No, thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's not is JJ McCarthy elite. That's right. That's good talk radio. No, it's bad talk radio. But,
that's it. And this is
thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
It's important. It's an important topic.
So I'll give you, here's the toss-up question I will give you to sort of set background for maybe people who've not yet read the piece. How would you describe, as you get into it in this story, what is online sextortion? And how does it differ from a different kind of online extortion that officials used to have to mess with, it seems, more often?
Yeah, so this one's kind of called, for lack of a better term, financial sextortion.
Mm-hmm.
So I think everyone's kind of familiar with, there's pictures and they use them to embarrass people, or they try to, whatever people are trying to do, to jilted lover, this or that. And a lot of that was for females or whatever. And that was more about embarrassment or revenge or different things. This is different. This is organized crime. And what the FBI says is there's basically crime rings, particularly in Nigeria and the Ivory Coast. What they used to do with the Nigerian prince, or going after the elderly or different stuff. About 3 years ago, they started seeing an extensive amount of attempts on teenage boys. And what happens is they come in, they use, particularly through Instagram or other of those social media, they buy an account, a hacked account. In this case, costs $4.80, and they have an attractive teenage girl, and they make her seem exotic. She should be like a college student from Los Angeles, and all of a sudden this girl is direct messaging some 15-year-old kid somewhere in America, and trying to get them to start chatting. And then they figured out, they are ruthlessly efficient at this, at figuring out the words and the attempts and the things you have to do to get the kid to send a picture back to the girl. And it's not a girl, it's 3 guys in Nigeria or the Ivory Coast, or 4 guys. And they then, again, using a proven script, this is very, very organized. They will attack the kid and say, look, we're not just going to send this to your girlfriend or your parents or expose it in your school. Here's the list of all of your teachers' Facebook accounts. Here's your mom's church group. Here's this. We're going to go viral with this. We can do this. And they knew all the buzzwords. They started seeing the same terms. We're going to ruin your life. This is going to go viral. This is what people are putting into the tip line at the National Center of Exploited and Missing Children, or the FBI. And they have found a way to get these kids rattled. And they say, hey, give me $500, give me $1,000, and we won't do it. And then kids will send whatever they got, $200, $500. They don't really have a lot of money. It's not huge money. It's about, when they go up to the elderly, it's usually it takes months, and they trick one guy into giving him $100,000. Yeah. This is about getting $200 from as many kids as they can. And they prey on kind of the immaturity and the mistakes that young men, teenage boys often make. And they'll try to get money there, but they'll continue to push and push and push and push for more money. And what we've seen is the kids fall for it in big numbers. They give out money, but in most most horrifically, we've had at least 36, perhaps 40 known cases of suicides that occur from these things, because they push and say, your life's over, we're going to ruin your life, and the kids will end up committing suicide, often within hours of the first attempt. There was a kid in Ohio committed suicide 27 minutes after being first contacted. So you could have a teenage son who's as happy as can be, goes up to his room, 30 minutes later he's dead. And it's because of this. It's a horrific and it's a terrifying crime, and we don't know how extensive it is, because it's still taboo to say what happened, or it's hard to figure out, especially after a death, what was going on. You need probable cause and things like that. So that's probably more of an answer than you're looking for.
No, it's
basically what we're dealing with.
No, it's a good overview. It's exactly the kind of primer, I think, to set up the rest of what I wanted to talk about in ideal fashion. You note the led to over 36 suicides since 2021. You write, online sextortion has led to tens of thousands of cases and more than $65 million in losses, according to the FBI. Let's drill down a little bit and humanize this story, as tragic as it is to do it, but it brings it home even more with the case that you start this story with, the story of Jordan DeMay. What can you tell us about him?
Yeah, Jordan was, they all described the All-American kid. He played football, he played basketball, he played baseball. He was the homecoming kid, homecoming king. He was from Marquette, Michigan, and Michigan's Upper Peninsula, small town, and had everything going for him. Was about to had a girlfriend, and it was about to head off to college in the fall. He was a senior, 17, was about to leave for spring break the next day, and got caught up chatting with someone he thought was a college girl from Atlanta, and it was 3 guys from Nigeria, and they asked for $1,000. He had $355. He gave them $300. They kept demanding more. You can read the transcripts and the pressure and the wording that they put under. You look and go, how could you fall for this? But in that moment, it just feels they figured out how to make these kids feel like it's hopeless, it's over. And so within a matter of about 5 hours after his first contact, the first 2 hours were just innocent texting or direct messaging back and forth. And he kept saying, this is fake, you're not real. He sent some joke memes back and forth. Like he was very worldly on it, but then in an instant he made a mistake and sent one picture, and they just hit him with everything. And they did send the picture to his girlfriend who was sleeping, but they said they were going to send it to the whole school. They're going to send it to the whole town. They're going to send it here. They're going to send it there. And as an athlete, what they found is a lot of the athletes they have a bigger social media profile. They have a high social status in their small community. A lot of them are worried about projecting the perfect image for recruiting. So they found some of the athletes to be particularly susceptible to this. Your most popular kid that has everything going for him, and the last kid you would think, oh, he's struggling through high school, or we should keep an eye on him. It actually works more effectively with them. And so within a matter at about 3:30 in the morning, while his dad, his stepmother, and his 2 stepsisters were sleeping upstairs, he had a split level house down in his basement. He took his own life just like that. So his parents saw him go to bed, he was up, but he was in his room packing. And by the morning when they went down, when he didn't show up at school, they went and found him, and he was gone. It's just that instantaneous.
Yeah, the picture as you describe it, like you say, there's other people in the house, but you can sense the way you put this thing together. What he feels like he's the last person on earth. He feels like he's the loneliest kid in the world, right? He's, like you say, he feels like he's by himself. He's got nobody he can talk to about this. There's no way out of it. And then, like you say, if you have access to what he has access to, it's all done in a split second, and then there's no going back.
Yeah, almost every one of and I call them murders. They're suicides, but this is a murder to a degree. Is done within 24 hours, and the vast majority within 5. Like I said, there was a kid in Ohio, 27 minutes. I mean, and look, I'm a parent, two teenagers, and you're always looking. How are you feeling? What's going on? Right? It's a parent's worst nightmare. The idea that the kid could be absolutely everything going for him, everything's great. The last person you would possibly suspect would succumb to this, 30 minutes later, it happens. Is just I think all of our worst nightmares. Or I think he's asleep. I think he's asleep in his room, and he's not. And he as long as you have a phone, you are. Every one of us is capable of getting blackmailed, extorted, bullied, attacked from someone 5,000 miles away. And teenage boys are particularly vulnerable to this, and that's what these groups have found. So they'll sit there and try to do 30, 40 chats. They'll sit there all night trying to it's like throwing fish lines out, right? And hoping to get a nibble and then hoping to get a hook. And then they just want to try to get $200, $300. It's small money. But in that moment, these kids have felt like they have no other recourse, like their life is over. And sadly, they believe what they're being told on the other end of this chat.
We'll get to the law enforcement part of this in a minute, because I know that's part of how maddening this story is on several levels. But what did you learn regarding the obvious question? Again, look at the ages of these kids, man, and we all think of ourselves at that age and what we're capable of doing, and didn't have access. I didn't have access to phones. I don't know if you did, because they didn't exist when I was growing up. But what do the experts say is the best strategy to try to get through to kids? Is it throwing stories as tragic as these are up in front of them? Is there another way? I mean, what's the best? What do the experts say are the best approaches to try to minimize, kids being drawn into this morass?
Yeah, so I'm not an expert, but I did talk to all of them. I would recommend going to the National Center of Exploited and Missing Children's website or the FBI's, and they have all sorts of material. Essentially, awareness is huge, okay? This kid knew. He sensed that this wasn't real. I would say simply this. If you're a 15-year-old kid or 16-year-old kid, and you're in your basement somewhere in Minnesota, a 19-year-old college girl from L.A. is not looking to chat with you. Okay, let's just start with that. Generally speaking, anyone looking to get into sending intimate photos to that generally no girl is going to want that. But it's particularly not like, why is this woman choosing me? Okay, so there's a lot of things that, as an adult or in hindsight, you've got to go, come on, man. Like, there's no way that was real. But they have figured out that this does work, right? So, we can look at it and say, how does it work? It works, and it works terrifyingly well. So the first thing is awareness, and then maybe you sense it and go, I'm never doing that. Don't send any pictures. The second part is, if you make that mistake, your life isn't over.
Yeah,
okay?
exactly.
We need to destigmatize this.
Exactly.
It's getting a parking ticket. Relax. Say it's AI. It's not even you. There's all sorts of ways, and the kids need to know there's a way out. This is not the end. And some of it is apparent. It's being very, very serious, but at times it's also being, this is what they said, like, you don't want the kid to think, oh, I'm going to lose my social media.
Yep.
For a 15, 16-year-old, social media is their life. And it's that feels like your life is going to end. So in some ways, it's a little counterintuitive. You're not going to be in trouble. Just come to me. The first thing a child should do, or an adult, because they do adults too here. They do everybody. Shut the computer. Just close the computer. They are looking for money. And if they think they have to waste too much time and you're not responding, they're likely to move on to someone else. It is a fish. You nibbled on the hook and then you got away. That's the best thing to do. Report the account to the social media service. Flag it and shut the computer. Go find a trusted adult. Go find someone to talk to. Call the police, whatever you have to do. Go to the exploited children website and read it. Just take a deep breath and realize once you shut that computer off, you've taken their access to you and their power away, and they're likely just to move on to the next guy. One of the things that happened in this case that probably is not happening going forward, because these criminals learn from each other. The mistake this group made, if you will, is they sent the picture of the kid Jordan to his girlfriend. And because of that, after Jordan took his life, the girlfriend discovered the direct message, and that sparked a criminal investigation. Without that, you don't know why he took his life. And they can't start a criminal investigation unless not every death investigation leads to, hey, we're going to call the FBI, right? We can't do that. So it probably, they're not going to send it to anybody. It's all a bluff, because they just want, give me $200, give me $300. But you can never pay them enough. So you need to shut the computer and walk away. That is the number one thing that takes their power away. And in clearer times, you're going to realize, whatever, man, who cares? This is not that important. Say it's a fake, laugh it off, whatever. It's not worth taking taking it to this extreme.
ESPN's Dan Wetzel, kind enough to join us. He has a new outstanding investigative piece at the top of ESPN.com. Predatory web of sextortion increasingly ensnares young athletes. Let's get to the law enforcement side. As you mentioned, there was a criminal investigation in this case, and it sounds, on the basis of what you've written, is that there's been pretty good cooperation from Nigerian officials as well, given that this is where a lot of these individuals seem to be located. Tell us about that and where that stands.
Yeah, so the FBI says the Nigerians do cooperate. There is an extradition deal between the two countries. The Nigerian government does not want to be known across the world as the scam country, right? They want people to legitimately come and do business in their country. And if everyone only thinks of this and the Nigerian prince, the email that everyone got 1 million of, and all those things, that damages it. So there has been some extraditions, there has been some criminal prosecutions, but it's still a small number. In this case, they were able to work extremely hard. There was a U.S. attorney in the Western District of Michigan who worked very hard on it. The FBI. It was a big push that they had to send this message back, hopefully to these kids and these 20-year-olds in Nigeria. Hey, you might end up in a United States prison. Right. So they were able to get two of them out, two brothers. They both were sentenced to 17 and a half years. They're in a federal facility in Illinois. But the FBI is very, very clear. There is no way we can arrest our way out of this problem. There are way too many of these groups because it is so easy to do. Again, they bought the fake account for $4.80. And once they had the fake account, there's a kind of an elaborate scheme that they work with. There's actually money. There's people in the United States who work as money mules, though they may not know the full extent of it, because you can't Venmo or Apple Pay overseas, but they send it to an account in the United States. That person buys Bitcoin. The Bitcoin gets sent back to Nigeria and all of this stuff. So a kid like Jordan DeMay, his scammers, if you will, probably the three of them split maybe $200, $220. That was it. And this kid took his life. So there is a way for criminal for law enforcement in the United States to work on this, but right now it's not a top priority where we're just going to get everybody. The key is stopping it in the United States and then trying to scare as many people in Nigeria. But the biggest thing is these guys they're just looking for money, and they'll probably just give up. They don't view it as a crime, and much of a crime. There's a lot of testimony from the two brothers they brought in, and they just said, look, we think we're just taking some money off a rich America, and they won't even miss the money, and it means a ton to us, right? And so when that mindset is in the streets of these countries, it's really hard to change that.
We're getting tons of texts reacting, individuals with similar stories or some almost not as tragic, some cases every bit as tragic. Example, 715 guy writes, this happened to my son in high school. He sent $200, woke us up around 1 a.m. to confess, and to this day I've never seen panic and despair in his eyes like that again. I want to stick with that text. I don't know, obviously, that much more about the story, but this goes back to the destigmatization, and this is complicated because obviously there's been a great emphasis, as you well know, of, working overtime to convince young boys, do not send photos to individuals you do know, because that is in of itself quite threatening and quite dangerous. But I still feel like a piece of this is how parents, like how the parent in this case reacted, that if you lose your mind as if, well, your life's over, that's what contributes to the notion that so many of these kids have that I've got nothing to turn to, I got nobody to turn to, and I'm just going to end it because there's no way out of this box because I know what's going to happen to me and the way I'm going to be stigmatized.
It's extremely complicated, and I don't have that answer. And I would recommend going to the experts and trying to get those pointers. But obviously, you need two things to happen here. One, I can go to my parents and say,
yep,
hey, I made a mistake.
Yep.
I kind of liken it to when, if your child drives goes out on a Friday night and they go to a party and they have too much to drink and they can call you and say, hey, can you pick me up? I made a mistake. Because what you don't want them to do is drive home, right? And so as long as they still believe I'm better off calling you and saying, I made a mistake, I shouldn't have done this, but I'm not going to drive home and potentially die or kill someone else, right? And so if you can get to that point, that's a good spot to be in. How do you do that? Man, I'm a parent. Stuff's hard. It's really hard. But you have to do that. And then just as a society, who cares, right? Yep. Okay, there's a pic out there, whatever. Like, we have to get to where it's just like that stuff happens. Mm-hmm. And I guarantee you will have 100. I can't believe how many people I heard from today. This happened to me. This happened to me. This happened to me. Adults, kids. This happened to my son. All that. It just happens. These are. You're not dumb. You're dealing with a criminal. It's like I was riding the train and someone stole my watch, right? Like, or I got mugged or whatever. Like, right. You're a victim of a crime. You're a victim of a professional criminal organization that has refined their tactics to get you to do this. And they know exactly how to play off particularly a young teenage mind. And so it is not shameful if you got beat by them. It's just how it is. You just happen to run into a criminal that day.
Another texter, 218 area code, said he had this happen to my cousin. Will you ask your guest if they can actually post these pics on Facebook, or would they be blocked? Do you know how all that, I don't know all that protocol works.
So there's a thing, they just signed a law called Take It Down. The National Center of Exploited and Missing Children has a system you can call them, and they have a online tool, and I'm not 100% how it works, but go deal with them. They can make sure those pictures that get taken down and never appear. So it may go up, but they will go down. And we can get into a whole other discussion of what the tech companies should be doing, but they are obligated now. They're not doing all that they should, in my opinion, but they're obligated to get these pictures down. So even the idea that they could get something up on Facebook or Instagram and it's just going to sit there forever, that is not the case under these laws. And the National Center of Exploited and Missing Children is very confident that they can help you. Call them, hit them up on their online service. We can solve this problem. They're very adamant about that. So the threat isn't, once we take the heat out of the threat, then it's not that bad, right? But that's what drives the suit. Because every kid's going to make mistakes. It's just the consequences need to be far less than what. Your life is not over this stupid thing.
100% agree. I was about to ask you mentioned reaction, and you've written a lot of really good investigative pieces over the year, but I got to believe, because of the universality of this story, I bet you it's rare that you're going to ever get more reaction than you will to this piece, and it sounds like that's already begun today. I bet you're going to be overwhelmed.
Well, especially when 99% of it's on the same side.
Yep.
Right, like it's pretty hard to have an issue in this country where everyone's like, yeah, I'm on this side,
yes,
not on that side. And so that, and just as I was reporting this, like, I don't know, I don't respond.
Sure.
But, you get the text coming, hey, or I got a job offer for, whatever. You just delete it.
Mm-hmm.
But every one of those is somebody trying to get you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really just about having the experience to fall for. But yeah, it's overwhelming. You'll get calls the rest of the day. You could do it all week of people telling you these stories, and they should. Because the only way we get this out there, stop it, is hey, here's how I stopped it. Here's how the experts say to stop it, and relax. These things happen, right? If somebody stole your wallet, is because you walk down the street, you don't sit there and say, oh my gosh, I'm so humiliated. You just go, boy, that stinks. That guy stole my car. That guy stole my wallet. These are professional criminal activities. They have scripts. They share them online. It is a they know relentlessly how to attack these kids in ways that, just that you wouldn't believe. And so it's far more, you're far more a victim than a sucker. And that, I think, is a big part of this. Last item, Dan,
how did you come to this story? What was there a particular, because you write about a lot of individual tragedies, you humanize the story that way, but was there a particular item that got you into this, that made you aware of it?
Well, I had heard of this trend and of these kids committing suicide from the financial sextortion, and then I chose the DeMay case is interesting because it's done. They adjudicated it. They brought the guys in, so there was more details available than some of these other ones. It's so horrific for these families that don't even know. I mentioned the kid from Ohio who took his life in 27 minutes. His parents weren't able to access his phone for 10 months. It was code locked, and they couldn't break the code for 10 months. They spent 10 months after their son took his life in 27 minutes, not knowing why at all, nothing. And then even then, once the FBI gets involved, even the DeMays, they don't know the full case, every detail. So it's just these poor families are looking for answers, and they just have no idea. That's why we think the suicides are much higher, and the cases are much higher. There's a high rate, an increasing rate of young men committing suicide in this country. We don't know how many of those are because of this. Like, that could be the whole reason there's an increase, or it could be a part of the reason. It's at least part. And so it's so tough when you don't have any information. So the DeMay case, there's a young man in Minnesota that did, fell for this. And
Olivia, Minnesota, I believe you wrote, yes.
Yeah, there's all over. So I could have picked any of them. Every one of them is equally traumatic. This one just had more information, I thought, that to frame it so people could see the beginning and the end and as much details as possible. Because the more details, the more you see the transcript, which you can read in the story, you start going, these guys are just ruthless. The kid's saying, I'm going to kill myself right now. And they go do it.
Right.
I'll make you. They are ruthless. They don't care. And the idea that one human being would say that to another human being is alone startling. But that's exactly what's going on, and it's going on with all sorts of groups, all sorts of these little crime rings.
Well, and as you say, and you get into this in the story in pieces as well, it's the tragedy of the lost lives and lost futures, but it's also with what the families are left with and what they are dealing with, the regret that obviously to varying degrees will never quite go away. That in itself is another whole story.
Yeah, there's no ending to this tragedy. The death of a child, a suicide in a family. The pain is never going to end on this, and that's why you have people. I was messaging with Jordan DeMay's dad, John, yesterday. I said to both his mom and everybody up there, like, you guys are heroic for putting yourselves out there on this. They were an open book. They will say anything. You could have them on your show. They will absolutely do anything and say anything. They will tell their story down to the most heartbreaking details because they just don't want someone else to go through what they're going through. And that's how much, and there are many other families willing to do this. This is a really unusual, there are 36 at least, we could be hundreds, who knows, of young men killed in this country at the result of pressure tactics by an international crime ring, and nobody's talking about it. It's the most astounding criminal story, true crime story I've ever heard of. I mean, it just doesn't get discussed much. It doesn't get much media attention. It isn't on the, it isn't really discussed by politicians. Like, this is the kind of thing everyone should be talking about. We're losing at least a kid every month, at least. And it could be anybody.
Well, and I'll say the hope from this story is maybe it opens that up, where maybe this is where it has to begin. Because sometimes sometimes it takes one breakthrough story on a big, platform like ESPN that you have with your reputation as well to get other people to take a look. Because you say there's so much you could still be written. There's so many tentacles to this thing. So you got to start somewhere, which you obviously have done with outstanding work. We appreciate the extended time you gave us today, and we'll try to stay in touch. Thanks again, Dan. We appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you. Thanks for doing this.
Absolutely. Dan Wetzel, ESPN.com, with a story. Again, you try to do justice to it, but you got to read it. I think that's the best way to fully understand the depths of this tragedy and, like I said, the tentacles to it. And there's a helplessness about it. In fact, let's break. Let's stay with this because Johnny's not with us till 5:30. A lot of good reaction coming in via the text line, and Guardsy and I can get into some of our reaction as well, because there is so much beyond even what we dealt with Dan Wetzel on a story that I guess I knew this stuff was out there, but I had no idea before I read this story how extensive it is, how global it is, how never-ending it is. You think, there's a couple anecdotes here and there. It's obviously a lot bigger than that. Stay tuned.
Vikings football is back. You can come find our Mall of America street team each day at Vikings training camp to find out how you can win awesome prizes, including Mall of America mystery cards or tickets to an upcoming Vikings game. Full details are at KFAN.com. The keyword is calendar.
The pictures are indeed worth 1,000 words in the Wetzel story online version, because there's nothing quite like a photo of a 17-year-old kid earnestly looking into the screen, or looking into the lens, into the camera. And now he's gone. I mean, the list is laid out in the Wetzel story. It goes on and on. James Woods, 17, a track sprinter from Streetsboro, Ohio, died in 2022 after sextortionists wrongly told him he would go to prison for sending a nude image. Carter Bremseth, 16, a golfer from Olivia, Minnesota, died in 2021. Riley Bassford, 15, of Potsdam, New York, an avid outdoorsman who played lacrosse and football, died in 2021. Eli Heacock, 16, of Barron County, Kentucky, a track and tennis athlete, took his own life last February. He'd been pressured after extortionists used AI to turn a clothed picture into a nude before threatening to release it. Braden Bond, 15, of Cronenwetter, Wisconsin, a baseball player, died by suicide last March. His final note included a line referring to his sextortionist, quote, "Make sure he gets caught."
Right.
If this doesn't make you just want to cry, these kids are all gone. And, Wetzel made a bunch of, I think, salient points, but one of them is there's a million legitimate political talking points to get into and things that need to be addressed, right? Wouldn't you like to think that there had been a politician out there, and maybe there are, we just don't know about them, that would have made this story front and center before a reporter had to do it? And as Wetzel says, this might be one of the few issues in the country where Sharks and Jets are happily going to hold hands.
Right.
Right? Now, I'm sure they'll find something to argue over. But all the time we waste on stupid stuff, and you see what he said online, and this politician, and this is about as universal. These are our children. And I'm guessing it's not just athletes. It's easier with athletes because their profile's a little higher. So if you're the bad guys who are into trying to isolate and identify would-be prey, you're going to start there because they're more out there. But they don't care whether you're famous or not if they think you're convinced that your life will be over if they reveal whatever it is that you sent to them in a moment of weakness. Correct?
And they're looking for $200.
That's the other thing, yeah. Because as we said, the sextortion stuff, it used to be about something different. It used to be just about the reputation part of it, and now it's the money part of it. Or that's become a bigger and bigger part of it as well. So
the AI part of it's all scary, and the story is worth it. You're not going to feel good after reading it.
No.
It's one of those. But that not only can they take legitimate pictures and threaten you with them,
yes.
but they can now also just take any image, make it, look much worse than it is, and use that to threaten you. Which
it's a whole other component.
Which is why I think Wetzel's point was, just say it's all AI. Just get out of it any way you can, but don't give them money, and certainly don't think that your life is over if this happens.
Well, what's hard, too, is, we're all parents, or a lot of us are parents, and it's the old, you want to be tough on certain issues.
For sure.
But in a sense, and I agree with him, what he's saying here is, if you give children the notion that your life, if you do something like this, your life is over, all that is likely contributing to the inability or unwillingness to, in that moment of weakness or after that moment of weakness, coming forward and saying, you're not going to believe what I did.
Made
it's
a mistake.
awful, but we have, that's what hit me about the kid he started the story with, right? It was the idea that you're in a house with other people. But Jordan DeMay, obviously, at the moment when he killed himself, he thought he was alone. There was nobody to go to. There was nobody who could understand. And there was no coming back from it. Oh, my God. It's just, that's where you want to, grab the kid. No. We'll get through it. Yes, it's a stupid thing. But there's ways out of this. This isn't going to define your life. And now he's gone. It's unbelievable. Let's get caught up, and we'll get more reaction from the text line, which is pretty vibrant right now in terms of reaction, and more from Guardsy and me. Top 5 at 5, top of the hour. Johnny Athletic will join at about 5:30. Texts regarding our 4 o'clock guest, Dan Wetzel, ESPN.com. And if you're just joining us, we've talked with him about his new investigative piece at ESPN.com. The predatory web of sextortion increasingly ensnares young athletes. And he leads with a story of Jordan DeMay out of Marquette, Michigan, 17 years old, 6'2", homecoming king, popular, funny, expansive group of friends. Injuries end his goal, I should say, of playing small college football. But he's going to was set to attend nearby Northern Michigan University with his girlfriend Kyla in the fall. And he responds one night, evening of March 24th, 2022, to an Insta message. And as he says in the lead, as Dan Wetzel writes in the lead, the first message was, "Hey." And it devolved from there into ultimately an inappropriate picture being sent Jordan's way, and Jordan ultimately responding by sending one as well. And at that point, he very quickly came to understand that he wasn't speaking to a college girl, who was soliciting him, he was actually speaking to some individuals out of Lagos, Nigeria, including a man named Samuel Ogoshi, who happened to be at that time himself 22 years old, part of a small ring of online scammers, including his younger brother Samson, then 19, and a third man, Ezekiel Robert, then 19. Jordan sends the photo. They've got him. Then we're going to send it to your friends. We're going to send it to your girlfriend. And ultimately, unless you pay us, he paid what he had. I think he ended up paying, they wanted $1,000. I think his first payment to them was $300.
He had like $335
and then he
or
ended up with
$355
total. And they said, watch how I make your life miserable. He's saying, I got nothing left. Nothing. I got nothing else to spend. Why are you doing this to me? Because it's going to be your worst nightmare. Goes on from there. I'm begging for my own life. He wrote to them. I am begging for my own life. And ultimately, he goes upstairs to the kitchen, finds a .40 caliber handgun loaded with hollow point bullets, takes it out of an unlocked safe above the refrigerator, returns downstairs, sits on his bed, types out 2 texts. One to his girlfriend, Kyla, I love you so much. God, I made a mistake and wish I could continue, but I can't do this anymore. This was a choice I made, and I must pay myself. 11 minutes later, he sends another text to his mother. Mother, I love you. And not long after, he pulls the trigger and takes his own life. Just astonishing. Bradshaw and Bryant, KFAN text line is brimming over, as one might expect. Because, again, it's a universal story, isn't it? I mean, this is one that, in one form or another, everybody can relate to. Now, I've got a number of texts from people, adults, who said, this happened to me. And in one case, it was someone in his 50s who said, I ultimately did go to the police.
Yeah.
But not before. I felt desperate enough that I had some other really, really indelicate thoughts that I wasn't going to be able to get out of the box.
He mentioned those texts, too, that he gets, that we probably all get. I get a text every 2 days.
Yes, the ones about,
hey, you'd be a good fit for the job.
Right.
You interested?
Yes.
I said, well, I have 9. I don't need 10.
And it's usually a job. The first, I think, tip-off should be you're going to make $100,000 a week in the first 6 weeks.
Right.
And that's usually a sign that something might be amiss, but people get intrigued.
Of course.
Whatever, in some cases.
Let's see what happens.
The AI part of this, a couple people are saying perhaps the increasing capability, writes Todd, of AI may actually solve the problem, too. When all Photoshopped or AI-altered pictures eventually look indistinguishable from actual photos, anyone could make anyone look like anything at any time. And his assumption is then the blackmail value of the pictures becomes worthless, because there's a part of me that says, well, if you're being blackmailed by somebody who's literally AI, like altering a photo,
right,
then to me, at least in theory, that should be easier to go public and say, go right ahead. You did something, that photo. That's not me, right?
Exactly.
But people get terrified, I guess. They get scared.
And we're talking about teenagers.
That's it. In many cases, yes.
Whose world is online and in their community, essentially. It's a nightmare situation for them.
Saw the article yesterday, clicked on it, then saw my 6-year-old son, said to myself, can't read this right now. But you got to. You got to read it. It's too important to not read. Jeff from Richfield, you shouldn't be allowed to use social media until you're an adult. When you're young and inexperienced in the world, you're not prepared to deal with things like this. Adults can rarely handle it.
Right.
Negatives by far outweigh the positives. Additionally, how aren't these social media companies at least partly culpable? They're allowing minors to be exposed to predators. It's gross all around. 612 guys, suddenly sports doesn't really matter much anymore. Good reminder to talk to hard issues with your kids and don't be embarrassed. Here's the one. I'm a 50-year-old, and this situation was unbelievable. I ended up calling local PD, but was about to pay the ransom and spent a few hours contemplating many things. Richie from Lake Elmo read the article yesterday. It's heartbreaking. Thank you for having Wetzel on to bring attention to this. You helped save some lives today. That's 702 guy. I hope so. I just like bringing awareness to it because it's a story that, again, I thought was out there on the periphery. You know, there were individual cases like this, but when he puts it all together the way Wetzel did and talks to the experts, talks to law enforcement, talks to folks who deal in this currency, and you see the numbers.
Right.
What do you say? 36 minimum suicides.
Right.
Minimum, then maybe more than we don't even know about, not to mention, hundreds of millions of dollars in extortion. But then there's like you said, the mental cost of the torture that you're putting yourself through as you're going through if you find yourself ensnared in this kind of process. I just texted my 20-year-old son about this. Thanks for talking about it. And again, this isn't, I don't think, I'm not foolish enough to think, well, you explain this to kids, they read the story, and they'll never get close to it. We all know that's not how it works. Kids are they make mistakes. It's, that's different. I can handle this better, whatever the case may be, right? Kids make bad decisions. But better, at least, you like to think, with coming armed with the tools. And maybe for a lot of parents, too, who want to be hard-ass on a lot of stuff, because we all do. Because if you love your kids and you want to be sure that they don't get off the path. But maybe this also puts into the minds of some of these individuals that how easy it is for some of these kids, to get ensnared by this, and that part of the solution has to be to not lose your mind if your kid comes to you. Because that's what I think contributes then to a kid going, I got nowhere to turn. I got no one's going to no one's going to believe. No one's either going to believe me or no one's going to understand it. And I got nowhere to go. Brutal. Top 5.
An update from Vikings camp that might interest some people in terms of the quarterback situation, and an honor for a Minnesota Twin.